Hello there. I recently found some really interesting old Garnachas to show you. So here we have Cuevas de Arom, and this is their Cantals Vineyard 2018 Garnacha. And I think this is a previous release. It's not the current release of this wine, so it's probably been sitting in the shop for a little while. I've always been very impressed by the wines from Cuevas de Arom. It's a cellars created by a master of wine, somebody called Fernando Mora. And Fernando's a huge enthusiast for the Garnacha vines of his native Aragon and this region, particularly Calatayud. Now, Fernando became enthused with wine when he was working actually in the car industry, and that actually changed the direction of his life completely. He was living in a flat in Zaragoza at that stage. One of the first things he did was he planted vines in his grandparents' garden, evidently, and made a wine in 2008, which he gave the name Arom, which is his surname backwards, which he harvested and made in his bath, evidently. We devised a cooling system for that. One assumes it was quite a successful wine because by 2013 he'd given up his full-time job and came to work in the wine industry. So what he's done is he's been working largely, he started off actually in the Campo de Borja region, but soon found that Calatayud was a better region to find the fruit he was looking for. And he's managed to find some fantastic old Garnacha vineyards at very high altitude. I mean, for instance, Cantals is a single vineyard, and this is at over 700 meters above sea level. So here in Calatayud, we're fairly far inland. You're about halfway, not quite halfway, probably about a third of the way from Zaragoza to Madrid. So it's an inland area, and as I say, with vineyards reaching up above 700 meters, some 800 meters. So it's a single vineyard. These are old, I think in this case over 70-year-old bush vines. They're unirrigated. This particular vineyard is on red clay soils with a slate topsoil, and so these iron-rich soils help to produce a wine with some real richness and depth. So Fernando's been working with growers from the Bordegas San Alejandro, a cooperative in the region, to find some of the best sites such as Cantals and to produce small volume wine. This, for instance, is bottle 359, 4,780 bottles produced. So it's a very limited production. So we have low yielding vines, and the Calatayud region and its climate has a warmth that helps to ripen the grapes. There's plenty of sunlight exposure, but the cooling influence of being so high up at over 700 meters enables the grapes to gain good ripeness, but still to retain lovely freshness, which helps to make balanced wines. The old vines, again, help to give very concentrated fruit. They'll set a small crop and therefore are more likely to get it fully ripe. So picking is done entirely by hand, and the wine ferments for 60 days in, it says, large barrels. And this is with daily pushdowns of the cap of skins back into the fermenting must. Now, my understanding is that it's not unknown for Fernando to actually jump into the vats and push that down and push the skins down manually using the old-fashioned technique of pigeage. Now, the other thing that's exceptional about this is the fact that the maceration goes on for something like 80 days, so over 10 weeks. And what happens there is you actually get past a stage of extracting tannins and flavours and colours from the skins of the grapes. And in fact, what happens is that the tannins start to polymerise and some of the excesses will actually drop out. And the wine then aged for 14 months in concrete eggs, meaning that there was no oak influence in terms of the wine's aging at all. It would have simply had a very small amount of oxidation, and I'm assuming the concrete is likely to have been slightly porous. And fermentation also, I should have said, was done entirely with local yeast. So again, the ambiance is to try and keep everything as local and as natural as possible. The vineyards are managed sustainably, all this sort of approach. So let's see what we make of the wine, shall we? The first thing I would say is it's got a fairly dark colour. Certainly for a Grenache, it's fairly deep. I can actually see through it. I mean, it's a black red with ruby hints, but I can see the stem of the glass quite easily. It's medium to deep, I suppose. The wine is 14.2% alcohol, and it's very readily leaving tears running down the sides of the glass there. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? Gosh, the aromas are rich, and there's a very savoury note coming through. They're rich and ripe. There's quite a sort of a licoricey note. You know, something distinctly savoury, sort of maybe a touch of black olive there, but also some really ripe, rich fruit, sort of rich, ripe red plum, darker plum, through almost to a pruny note. Hints of chocolate, perhaps the very start of some truffle notes as well. There's something slightly developed about the aromas. So let's have a taste. On the palate, that has some quite savoury, meaty, reduced notes, and that's followed on by spiciness, and then there's a juicy, concentrated fruit. It's dark plums, it's dark red cherry, and it's becoming very, very juicy. I think that's actually some quite nice acidity coming out there. I mean, this is not a sharp wine. The acidity is sitting behind some really ripe fruit. Ripe, but its juiciness is pointing to that acidity, because it really is peaking it up and leaving it lovely and lively. Atop that, there's a dusting of pepper, a sort of peppery spice, but that really seems to be sort of emphasizing the juiciness. There's almost a, I'm saying juicy red cherries, there's almost a sort of a juicy mulberry, juicy raspberry sort of note. Raspberry, quite a good note actually there, because you get that sort of slight spicy raspberry pip note coming through as well. So yes, an explosive mid-palate of juicy red fruit there that carries on quite nicely because of the lovely freshness. I mean, the wine's pretty full-bodied, but the structure, there is a grainy tannic structure there. I was talking about slightly chocolatey flavours. There's perhaps a slightly chocolatey texture. Notes of cocoa powder, that sort of smooth, but there's not a lot of sort of tightness or astringency there because of the warmth of the alcohol. There's a nice richness there. It's not overblown, it's not making it hot. There's enough freshness that stops it from the finish from being too hot. But there is plenty of this quite concentrated, juicy, ripe red cherry fruit that's really opening up beautifully. Now, I'm sure this is a wine you could age for 5 or 10 years quite happily, but at the same time, it's very approachable now. I mean, it's already 6 years old. The juiciness of that fruit is lovely and impressive. Every part of the wine is working harmoniously together, and there is a good concentration of that fruit on the finish. It's a serious wine, but it's really delivered very enjoyable drinking. And I think that completely justifies the 93 out of 100 that this vintage of this wine has in our aggregated score for Wine Searcher. I'll leave a link in the notes to our page for this wine on the Wine Searcher website, so you can follow that. You can find out where the wine's available, what its pricing is, and any more of the background information that we give you there. So thank you very much for joining us. I do hope you've enjoyed the tasting. If you have liked it, do please press the like button. If you want to watch more, it would be fantastic if you would sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to post videos daily, so there's plenty of content to watch there. If you have friends you think might like to watch it, do please share the video with them. That would be fantastic. If you have comments you would like to leave, the comments box below would be fantastic if you could use that. We would really like to know what you think about the wines, the tastings we're doing, or anything else that relates to that. Most importantly, however, do please try and take some time and come and join us for another tasting in the near future, won't you? Thanks again. Bye for now.